good?
Yeah, we're good.
All right, welcome back to the Creatives POV podcast. I'm Noah.
I'm Marquis.
And today we have a very special guest. We have Emma Dow with us. And Emma is a graphic designer and photographer and just overall creative. Originally from Iowa, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so we're just stoked to have you on, Emma. And so let's just get to know you a little bit. So tell everyone about yourself.
Yeah. Such a broad question.
Yeah, it's the hardest question. Everyone says
It's the hardest
that.
question. I am a graphic designer and photographer, as you mentioned, along with a lot of other different things. At the moment, what am I trying to say here?
You're good.
No, you're all good.
Yeah,
No,
this happens. Our first couple episodes that we did were terrible. We were I don't even know. I would get caught up thinking I'm going somewhere, and then all of a sudden I'd be like,
I'm
hold up
going
now.
nowhere right now. I'm
Yeah.
I do pictures
Yeah.
and I draw.
Yeah.
No.
but you do graphic design, right? Yeah.
Yes. So I guess I can start where we're at right now because we're sort of in a period of transition. I'm recently married.
Wow, congrats.
Thank you. And I went to Iowa State. I studied graphic design there.
Dope.
Graduated in 2020, which was quite a time to graduate.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was sort of on the path to work in athletics. I was shooting for Iowa State. I had an internship with a minor league baseball team in Charleston, and then I was going to be a photographer for the Oakland A's.
Wow.
then-
That's crazy. So many opportunities.
Yeah, and I was really excited about going down that path with my past of playing basketball and stuff, and it just kind of felt natural to stay in the sports world. But then, COVID and everyone in Oakland got furloughed. So I moved home, and that kind of put me on a different trajectory than I was planning on for most of college. And I started working for Hope Church and got really involved in video, which sort of felt almost like a graduate program for me because I was exploring this whole new medium in depth that I hadn't really done before. Did that for a year and a half, and then my husband's career really altered my path because I just had to be very flexible with his route in the NFL. So from there, about a year and a half ago, I've sort of just been trying to figure out what I can do to stay, to have a purpose and to have drive and creativity in my own life while having enough flexibility to support him and his goals right now. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was your first love like? Because you mentioned you do a variety of things. So what was the very first thing when you were a kid or just growing up that you discovered in the creative world and dived into?
A lot of different things. I would say that probably the first thing was drawing. My dad was a builder, and so we were always moving, and I was always thinking of different rooms that I could have. And he actually had a file in our house where I could just put my blueprints for our interiors or rip out magazine stuff from PB Teen that I wanted him to build or whatever. So it was actually probably interior design and drawing. When I was a kid, I was always thinking of my dream house. But then as I got older, it was more representational painting and things like that. So I've always been more rooted in drawing and painting and representational art before photography and graphic design. And I think that will always sort of be like my home base as far as like creativity goes.
Yeah.
So
If you had to choose one for the rest of your life, which one would you choose? Graphic design, photography?
that would be such a disappointing choice.
Yeah. For real.
I think probably graphic design because it's so much more broad. There is like, you can be an illustrator or you can design websites or design merchandise. And so I think there's a lot of different facets to like get the juices flowing. Whereas photography and like staying in one lane of photography can definitely start to feel like stagnant for me. So yeah,
I feel
probably
that.
graphic design.
Yeah. So, man, you talked about a lot of things. So Iowa State, you got your degree in graphic design at Iowa State. What are your thoughts on like college and higher education?
Yeah, I think it's very important now that it's in the rearview mirror. But when I was in high school, I definitely didn't want to go to college because I think I knew deep down that I'd be able to find my own way creatively, which I think a lot of creatives probably have that intuition. But I was pretty involved in playing basketball. So going to the next level with that was a natural step for me. And I ended up playing at the University of Milwaukee for a year. And then I studied, I was in their film school while I was there.
Oh, that's sick.
And so I think that all of those decisions just sort of like waterfalled me into college. But during my freshman year, I was pretty conflicted on like, number one, I think for the first time I started thinking about my future, and like, I guess basketball started to kind of feel like a waste of time. Like I wasn't able to really pursue what I wanted to creatively, which I knew would fuel the rest of my life. And basketball just sort of felt like it was like going to start fizzling out for my future. And while I was there, I realized that I wanted to get something like concrete with my education that I knew that I could make a salary on. And there were times that I thought about just going into like teaching or something because of that like solid security.
Yeah.
Yep.
But my parents and my mom in particular really like pushed me to stay creative because I know that she saw that light within me. And she was the one that actually said when I was ready to be done with basketball, like, why don't you do graphic design? And like, why don't you go to Iowa State? And I think I was in such a like personal crisis that I was just like, okay, like done. I'll go there. I'll do that. And it worked out. So listen to your mom.
Yeah.
How did it feel to have your parents, I don't know the word, your parents kind of like support you on that switch to just no basketball? Because you probably played basketball your whole life and they knew sports was your life.
Yeah.
To just being like, all right, go ahead and just do graphic design.
Yeah. It was really hard. It was a pretty hard time in my life because not only did they support me my whole life playing basketball, but like that's all I ever knew. So there were definitely some hard conversations in there, but I think they knew that it was just better for me in general to be done after a certain amount of time. And I am so grateful that they were persistent with me on continuing down the creative path, which I know not everybody's blessed with that with their support system. So, yeah.
What was it like graduating college in the year that like COVID happened? Was that a challenge for you? or was it like I'm almost done, so it's like whatever?
Yeah. I mean, in the like aspect of not having to do all of the intense shows and like the things that most people in the design school had to go through in the last 2 years of or 2 months of college, it was nice. I was obviously disappointed about my career path and not being able to go out to Oakland, but like in hindsight, I think it was the best thing for me.
Yeah.
And especially to build a life with my husband, having both of us be in the like intense world of sports was just something that wasn't gonna probably be able to like work. One of us sort of had to make a choice, and luckily I have a flexible enough career path that I was able to do that.
Yeah. So like for a lot of us creatives, like we've had a lot of people on that say like COVID actually helped me in my creative journey because it gave me time to like sit down and like really develop like my own business or my own brand, or like just get the ball rolling on ideas that they had and stuff like that. So like, did you have like a similar instance from like the creative stuff that you do?
Yeah. I think for the first time in my life, I decided that I was gonna do photography full time, because most of my college career, I was building like my freelance photography portfolio and shooting tons and tons of weddings, like while also being in school. So it sort of always just felt like a scramble in college. So to finally like have no other options really, since no one was hiring, other than, okay, I guess I'm just gonna like fully focus on doing photography. I don't think I would have done that in any other way. I probably would have continued down the path of sports, because it takes so much to get into that world, and you have to do so much like free labor and like so many long hours for no money, that once you're immersed in the sports world, it's kind of hard to like get out of that,
Right.
since you've done your time there. So yeah.
Photography question. What camera do you shoot with?
I've shot with the 5D Mark IV for probably like 8 years now. It's starting to kind of wear out on me. And I know people are way better about gear than I am.
It's not about the gear.
Yeah.
About the person. What's your go-to lens?
I have the Sigma 35 millimeter, and
good lens.
I've had that forever too. I've had the same kit the entire time.
Like,
That's a dope lens.
do you just have a 35?
Yeah.
Same. Let's go. Literally, I shoot everything on a 35.
Yeah.
And like, there's times when like, I'll be in a situation where I'm like, dang, I kind of wish I had like an 85 or something. Like, cause I like doing a lot of studio stuff. And there's been times, if I'm doing photos for like a brand or something like that, where I kind of want to mess around with like artificial lights and stuff.
Yeah.
And so like, being able to stand back and like shoot, like it would be helpful in that like sense. But the 35, like I like it because it's just like, I know the word cinematic is overused a lot, but like it kind of has that feel to it. But yeah, I don't know. I just like it.
I might have to show you how to use crop.
Yeah.
On your camera, because if it's a 35, you can crop it in 1.6.
Oh,
with
really?
No
Your,
way.
with your mirrorless camera.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'll show you. How to
Yeah, I need to see that.
So I do that. I shoot a lot more video than I do photos.
Yeah.
But we do shoot a lot of events. So I'll shoot on a 70 or 200. And
Okay.
I kind of don't like being in people's faces.
Yeah.
So I'll literally use a crop and it'll make it like a 95 to 225. And I'm like,
Wow.
Learning something new every day.
That's cool.
Yeah.
so yeah, it is pretty cool. I'll show you how to do it.
Okay,
It's dope.
appreciate that. If you like, what camera would you go to like if you want to upgrade? Like, have you thought about that?
I have. I like the R, the Canon R. I shot with that my senior year while I was doing football, and I think the mirrorless its capabilities are really nice, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm just like starting to get old school and I kind of like hearing the like,
Yeah.
but I love my Mark IV. And I don't know if I'm just comfortable and that feels like home base at this point. But yeah.
Yeah. Who are some people, creatives, artists like that inspire you and like have kind of influenced like your style?
A lot of people, even way back to the high school days when like there was a girl in our high school that was like doing actual shoots like in high school, and I thought that was so sick. Like at the time that she was actually getting paid to do that. So she was probably one of my first like inspirations as like a high schooler to get into photography. But over the years, like obviously Instagram and Pinterest create like so many opportunities to get inspired. And I think that's one of the biggest like benefits of those apps for creative people. I loved 1924 Us. When I was in college, they were like totally
That's solid.
my people. And yeah, I continue to use, like, I have always used the past as my inspiration. So like old school photographers and books and antique stores and things like that are a lot of times where I draw my inspiration from. And anytime I see anything that I'm inspired by out in the wild, like street signs or motel signs or whatever, I always make sure to take pictures of anything that just kind of lights a spark. So.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like when you're a graphic designer, you're just wired to be like that. Where like literally you just go to a grocery store and you might see like the way something is packaged and be like, that's sick. Like I'm the same way. So.
I just took a picture of a clam chowder can at the grocery store this week. So yeah, I get that.
Yeah. How would you describe your style to like people listening or viewing that maybe have never seen like your work before?
Yeah, graphically, I'm definitely inspired by the past. I like to like keep it kind of clean and minimal, not like, I guess, but I love color and I love texture and mixing fonts. And like I said, I draw almost all of my inspiration graphically from old ads or old baseball cards or old magazines. That's kind of
what decade like do you like the most when you're looking back at like all stuff that you're inspired by? Like, is it 70s stuff? Or
yeah, probably 70s and 80s.
I can see that. Yeah, that's cool.
I like the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
So tell us about Noon Swim Club, because like that's like is that your business for graphic design then?
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that whole journey and like tell us about the name first of all. Like where did that come from?
Yeah, it's a new journey. It's one that I'm sort of uncovering every day. Yeah. But I came up with the name back in 2020 when I was unexpectedly in my parents' basement again. They live in Okoboji, so we live like a couple blocks from the lake. And as I mentioned before, it was kind of the first time I had like autonomy over my own schedule. And so I started to just kind of like naturally get in this rhythm. It was during the summer where I would like do all my emailing and like talking to clients in the morning. And then over lunch, I would go for a swim in the lake and just like lay out in the sun for like 5 or 10 minutes and swim around, and then spend my afternoon doing more of like the editing and creative work that I needed to get done. And that was probably the healthiest work-life balance I had when I reflect on that time. And I think a huge part of that was taking the swim every day. So when I was trying to think of like how I would ideally run my own creative business, it would be having some sort of like break in every single day where I go for a swim or go for a walk or take an hour to be outside if it's nice. And so that's where I got Noon Swim.
That's fire.
Yeah, I like that. That's pretty,
I
that's
like
pretty dope.
the intentionality behind that.
So what kind of clients do you primarily work with Noon Swim Club?
It's pretty broad. I started the Instagram page and my own business for it while I was getting married because I wanted a place that I could sort of post all of the graphic work that I had already done. And I wanted to get away from my personal name a little bit. Because all of my photo work was sort of based on my name. And at the time, it just sort of felt like freedom to break free from that and like kind of work under like an alias where people weren't judging me necessarily for my own work. So I was posting a lot of the work I had been doing for the creative agency that I was working for at the time, because I hadn't really shared my graphic work at all before then. It was only photo. So I, within the past couple months, have been generating my own clients for the first time outside of that agency. And I've worked with a vast array of people sort of through word of mouth, as you know, as you start up your own business. I've worked with production companies and singer-songwriters for merch, and I worked with a pickleball paddle company this summer. Yeah. And I'm sort of enjoying like all of that variety at the moment.
Yeah.
100%.
What is your favorite, like if you had to choose a favorite type of client, like what would that be ideally?
I think right now it would probably be like a brand. So my favorite project I've worked on as Noon Swim Club was with a pickleball paddle company. They just sent me all their paddles and they needed 2 videos and like 150 photos. But the videos were like creatively directed. Like I needed to have a storyline and actors and wardrobe and all of those things.
Yeah.
And then I was in full creative control over the graphics and the titles and the music and everything like that. So that is my absolute favorite type of work, when I have full creative control over things like that.
Yeah.
So I think working with a brand from like start to finish, designing their logo, then their website, and then being able to create creative content with the product or the thing that they're trying to sell. I love when everything just like flows as it should, or like it looks like one unified brand.
Yeah. So brand development and creative direction is kind of what I'm getting from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Have you ever had like clients where you maybe don't get as much creative freedom, and like how do you handle those situations? Because like I feel like it's tough, like when someone reaches out to you and like they reach out to you because they admire your work, right?
Yeah.
But then it's like, where's the balance and where's the line of like you're coming to me because you appreciate like my style and like how I do things, but like also where's like the line, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. I think that how I handle that and how I handle it with most clients is upon like my first round of like delivering brand concepts, I usually give them 2 concepts, and one is sort of like the thing that I really want to do. And I kind of let myself run wild and free with that. And so I can see that concept all the way through to kind of like leave me feeling satisfied. And then my second concept is probably more along the lines of like what they want, or it's more like reserved, and maybe it's taking less risks with the brand development. And then I sort of let them see both of those things, and they can combine elements if they want or whatever. But I think it leaves me feeling satisfied, and it leaves them feeling like they have options. And
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to approach it, because I run into that a lot too, where I'm like, well, you came to me for my expertise, my certain style. But then I also run into the fact that like, all right, you're hiring me because I'm good at what I do, but being a business owner and a freelancer, like I have to be there to support the client, and they're hiring me. Like I'm not hiring them. So I got to do the work that they kind of want. So I run into that a lot too, which is, I guess it's hard. It's tough trying to make, it's like, forget you guys. I'm not doing this project anymore.
Well, also, I feel like it's really nice to be like able to like see through what you originally created all the way to the end, and like be there for like each step of the process, and like doing like the other types of content with like what you designed and all that. And it's, for me, it's really hard. Like when I've branded some businesses before and like done stuff like that. And it can be challenging to see something you create. 'Cause like, it's like, I take a lot of pride in what I do. Right.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'll get like attached to things like too much, even though it's not my thing. Right. It's like, it's their dream and their vision. I did my best to create and bring to life what they did. And now it's up to them to kind of do it. Like I can't, unless they're paying me to do it, like I can't be like telling them how to run their brand, because it's theirs. And so I have a hard time with that personally, like letting go and like detaching. Like, do you experience that at all?
Yeah, it's really hard. And it's forced me to pick up other creative things on the side, like pottery and painting, and doing things that I can be as fully creative as I want. And people can either buy it if they like it or not. But that's definitely a difficult balance with graphic design, because at the end of the day, you're always compromising.
Yeah.
And it's not like the thing you're creating isn't art. Like you have spent hours and hours and hours creating this thing that to you is art, for someone that maybe doesn't have your background to like kind of tear it to shreds, especially if you don't think that's the right direction for it.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing.
It's the hardest thing. Yeah.
It's like people give you feedback that have no creative background or don't know how much time it takes to, they're like, oh, could you just switch that in 5 minutes? It's like, no, it took me an hour to build that out.
Yeah, for real.
So
if you could work with any business or like person, or like what is your dream client for Noon Swim Club?
For Noon Swim Club, I love designing merchandise, and I love working with people and brands on that sort of thing. I'd say that like a brand I really admire is the Seeger Company, and I've been a big fan of them since their like early days. I actually had the chance to meet them this past fall, and to just hear like their business method, which is something that I try to like follow too, where you have this like holistic brand where these guys actually are going out and camping and surfing and going to Montana or whatever, and then they just put their merchandise like in that environment and capture the things that they're actually doing.
Yeah.
And that's how I always want to like operate as a brand developer. I have a hard time doing things that aren't authentic to
Yeah.
the actual nature of the brand. So if I'm Noon Swim Club,
Sorry.
you're good. I'm going to go for a walk every day.
Yeah.
Because that is my brand and that's something that I believe in. So yeah, a brand like that where like they have similar values as far as like our merchandise is going to match our lifestyle and we're going to wear our merchandise when we're doing the things that we're capturing.
Yeah.
And then I think people can see that and feel that and naturally are like inclined to like be devoted to that brand.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. Yep. That's
Yeah.
cool. How did you meet the Secret Company guys?
My husband and I actually reached out to them about doing some like social work with their merch and they're like popping off right now. So they sent us some merch and we were able to like do a couple things for them, but
That's
they were
sweet.
in Chicago and they were just like, do you guys want to just like meet up and get pizza?
Oh yeah.
So they're like
That's
actually
sick.
just really
is
cool
pretty cool.
guys. Like,
yeah.
so
Yeah. So did
cool.
you said you reached out to them? Was that like through social media?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I am definitely not afraid to like take chances in that realm. I think, you know, the best thing you can do is shoot people you admire a message. And that is honestly the coolest part about social media. Like there's no other way I would get connected with those guys without Instagram.
Yeah, 100%.
So,
Yep.
and I've done that across the board with people that I admire, just reaching out and saying like, hey, I think what you do is so cool. And I was just wondering like how you got involved in that type of work. And people are so receptive to that. Like I've almost never gotten even like ghosted. Like people almost always respond,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is pretty awesome. So-
And I'm gonna connect it to basketball since you play basketball, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
exactly.
And that's
Yeah.
not my quote. I don't know who made that up, but
I think it was Michael Scott.
oh, was it really?
Just kidding. I think it's Michael Jordan.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah. But how has social media like helped you in like your business?
Immensely. I think I owe my entire business to social media, actually. It is such an incredible tool. It can also obviously have its downfalls, which we all know at this point. But I think if you're able to cultivate like a healthy relationship with it, which we're all probably trying to do every day, it can be such a beneficial thing. So when I was starting out in photography, it was like my only marketing tool, and it got me all the work and more that I could have ever needed. And now it's sort of working in that way with Noon Swim Club, like the pickleball paddle company. Basically every single person that I've worked with has just stumbled upon my page. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So you're on Instagram. What other platforms like are you using on social media to kind of like put your brand out there?
I need a website still for Noon Swim, but in the past have really utilized like SEO and website stuff, especially for my photography business. I am the queen of Pinterest.
Yeah. I love Pinterest.
I
do love
absolutely love
Pinterest.
Pinterest. It's probably my favorite social media, actually.
It's underrated.
It is underrated.
Yeah.
But other than that, I kind of try to stay off. I started to dabble in TikTok a little bit, but try to keep that pretty like genuine and only post things that I'm actually doing.
Like
'Cause
what?
like I'll try to be more intentional about getting like video clips instead of just photos, and then I'll kind of like look back in my camera roll over things that I've done and create a TikTok video from that. But I have a tendency to just get addicted to social media in general. That's kind of my personality type, I think.
Don't we all?
Scroll.
I know that I'm like especially inclined to get addicted to TikTok, so I'm kind of trying to like stay away from it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Pinterest and TikTok are both kind of cool for me because it's like, you know, to me, it's kind of shown me how you can just use your iPhone camera and make kind of like cool stuff, you know, like a lot of Pinterest stuff that I save, like it's literally an iPhone camera, but the exposure is like brought down or something. And it's just like simple things like that. And so it's kind of inspired me to get more active just with this, you know, and just take pictures of like little things, right?
Yeah. Me too. Yeah. I used to never really get too artsy with my iPhone camera.
I'm not gonna lie, like I used to like be the guy that was like, you take stuff with your iPhone, like I have a camera, like, you know, but really like I look back at that version of myself and that was like probably when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, bro, you're cringy, man. Like,
I know.
Yeah.
We got to be nice to our little creative selves.
Yeah.
So.
And I think COVID has really changed the dynamic on how to be creative, and also vertical content has changed the dynamic.
100%.
Because when vertical content came out, nobody was really using an actual camera to shoot vertical content. They were using their phone, and then it evolved into turning your camera to make it vertical. So
that's so true.
Yeah. Question about Pinterest. Do you post like your own content on Pinterest, or do you use it primarily as like a mood board, like inspiration type of platform?
Probably started posting my own stuff within the past year to just kind of like explore it as a business tool. But I haven't found it to be like that successful yet as far as like generating business. And I'm not totally sure if it's a platform that's meant for that, because like when you see a pin or something on Pinterest that you like, I almost never go to like the profile of the person that made the pin. You just pin it and save it yourself. So still trying to navigate that. I haven't totally given up on it, but mostly for generating mood boards, and it absolutely thrives and helps me out.
What do you think of the saved feature on Instagram? Do you use that too? Or like, is it like, I have Pinterest for a reason, you know? Like,
I do utilize the save on Instagram, but I primarily use Pinterest. And if I like really like something on Instagram, sometimes I screenshot it and then like post it to my Pinterest board, because I in general just like to keep my things as like compressed as possible and not feel like my inspiration's like spread out all over the place. So
I feel that. What are some ways that social media has like kind of challenged you, and how have you learned from those like challenges?
It was, I mean, we're all about the same age, so I'm sure we went through the same experience of like growing up with social media. And then in college, I kind of just never questioned it. I just kind of like evolved with social media as it grew and evolved, as I'm sure all of us did. But once I was like graduating and didn't necessarily want to continue down like the wedding photography path anymore, I sort of hit a point with it where I needed to just go on like a sabbatical and just like step away from it and kind of question its like purpose in my life. I think for the first time I realized like, okay, I'm not reading books. I'm not creating things that I can touch with my own hands. I'm not printing out pictures. I'm not like, I just kind of was curious about what I was actually creating out of my life. And if this app went away tomorrow, what have I done?
Facts.
So
that's crazy to think about. Like, I feel like a lot of us put a lot of like our worth, or like we put all our eggs into this basket of social media, but it's like, what if your account got hacked or something? Or like, what if, that, I don't know how it would happen, but like Instagram just went down or whatever, then it's like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I spent almost a year and a half without posting on Instagram. And it was a really influential time in my life and sort of helped me to reframe what I wanted to do. And if I was going to have my own creative business, how was I actually going to run that without letting Instagram determine my path?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are some like, I don't know, tips or tricks or like advice that you would give to someone that's trying to like grow their social media?
I would say, I guess being on the side of it that I've had to do it for companies, like working for a marketing agency or like, various jobs where I've had to work and post for other people. Those posts never do very well when you're just posting like generic content. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's really important to like always stay authentic to the things that are actually inspiring you. Because at the end of the day, I would always have this like pit in my stomach if I was posting something that didn't feel authentic to me. Mm-hmm. And with Noon Swim Club, I've sort of thrown all of that out the door. Mm-hmm. And I only post what I think is inspiring, what I've seen in the wild, what work I'm really proud of. Yeah. And then I feel good. And I think that's the way to success in no matter what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what is your approach? What is your approach when a client comes to you? They're like, hey, I want to work with you. Like, what is the steps in the process, like when you're getting a new client?
Yeah. I'm definitely figuring that out still. Kind of trying programs like Notion and good old fashioned email, just trying to see what like is working for people the best. But normally I send them a form where they're able to get like specific about what they want. And then we sort of go through the process of like, okay, well, like what package is going to suit you? And like, how am I going to get you like what you need? Mm-hmm. We do contracts. A lot of times we'll like hop on a call and just discuss. And then I spend probably a week just doing research. So I create a research deck and I kind of walk them through like, here is the mood board. This is kind of like the feeling I have for your brand. Here's some colors, here's some type. Mm-hmm. And then we usually talk after that and sort of like, they'll either be like, I don't like this picture. I don't like this picture. I don't like this color. And then it sort of helps me like move into the concept part of the branding process with a little more clarity.
Okay.
Yeah. How important is it to go through all those steps to prepare for a project, prepare for a shoot? How can you explain like how it changes if you don't do that stuff versus when you do that stuff?
Yeah.
And how much smoother it goes?
Yeah, it goes a lot smoother, at least for me. And especially the research process, I like to feel like we all know how it feels to just have this like uncomfortable, it's just part of the creative process where you're like, I'm excited about this brand and I like think it's going to be cool, but I just can't like visualize it yet. Mm-hmm. So it's so important for me to get to a point with the client where I can almost like feel what it's going to be. Or a shoot, like this pickleball paddle shoot I did, I needed to like feel and almost see in my head exactly how like each shot and scene was going to go. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't do that, I think you can find yourself in the middle of a project, like kind of swimming, or feel like you're in over your head because you don't exactly know
Yeah.
what the end goal
You're
is.
almost like internally you're panicking. You're
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Yeah. Okay.
Do you ever experience like any creative block or burnout with these projects, or
Yeah.
and how do you rest? What does rest look like for you?
I definitely experienced that. I think as creatives, our work life can be confusing, because a lot of times we don't want to just be sitting in front of a screen or a desk for 8 or 9 hours, or like have a traditional like work day. But sometimes as creatives, we do need to have that structure in order to just sit down and get the work done. But I've found that I probably worked for 4 years in like a 9 to 5 where I was just sitting at a desk for 8 hours. And that's sort of what helped me to develop Noon Swim. I also read a book called The Artist's Way, and that really has guided my workflow process. And realizing that if you don't fill your creative cup with images and environments that inspire you, your cup will become depleted. Like, that's just a fact. So we aren't just this machine that can just keep pumping out these original ideas all the time. We have to be intentional about filling our own cup with new experiences and things. So
That's really good.
yeah. I think being out in nature and, like I said, taking my hour-long break where I go for a walk and I'm not on my phone, that's usually when I come up with solutions to the creative problems that I'm facing.
Is it hard to balance being like a photographer and a graphic designer at the same time? Because like with photography, you kind of have to plan with your client, like, okay, these days are when we're going to shoot or whatever. And like you said, you did weddings for a long time. Do you still do weddings?
Occasionally.
Occasionally? Yeah, it's like you would have to like book those and like plan those out in advance. And then like graphic design is like kind of a, I don't know. It's a longer process, but like, how do you balance just doing things that are kind of like different?
Yeah. I think it's important to do things that are different. At least it is for me, and it helps me to not feel as burnt out. Photography, I'm kind of in like a transitional space with that right now. And so I'm not really booking weddings like I was. But I'm sort of like developing a new love for it. And I'm learning how to get into a space with it where I am just capturing people and families as they are and keeping it really simple. So yeah, my career at this point with photography and graphic design has been kind of separate. And so, yeah, I don't necessarily know that balance at this point, but I know when I do have photo shoots in between like graphic projects, it's kind of a nice like break. It's like a good way to like shake up my my creative senses and stuff.
No, yeah,
so.
I understand that a lot, actually.
100%.
So then you were talking about like how it's important to like, you're talking about your experience like kind of in the corporate world or like for marketing agencies, how you work the 9 to 5 and all that stuff. For me, it's like as a creative, I have a hard time with that. Like I have kind of a 9 to 5 and it's hard because it's like certain moments I'm more creative than others. Like I'm kind of like, I get really creative at night, but then it's like during the day, like people want you there like working, right? Like, do you have that same kind of like I guess, what's the word for it? Experience. Like, are you similar in that way? Like, do you go through these waves of like inspiration and not inspiration?
Yeah. Especially in a 9 to 5. I think I felt like I was more consistently showing up to like my computer, but I was also more consistently like staring at my computer. So, and I know a lot of creative people are more creative at night. I've just heard that from having creative friends. But yeah, I think in the 9 to 5 world, I found out that I needed to figure out my own rhythm because there's no avoiding that you have to show up for your job and you have to sit at your desk. But like the first hour of my day, I would sort of like ease in. And a lot of times I would do like free writing, and I would just kind of like let all these words get out and kind of like prepare myself for a day of creating. And then I would maybe spend the next like half hour just like looking through Pinterest with freedom, without anything really in mind, again, to just like fill that well and feel like, okay, I've like seen things that are inspiring me today. Now I feel prepared to like tackle whatever creative challenges I have. And over lunch, if you can get out of the office, if you can go for a walk, if you can go find someone, like
I'm trying to figure out why no one's looking at me.
I'm
like
looking
that.
at him because like this dude will hit me up and be like, "You trying to get lunch today?" And then I'm like, I really want to, but I've gotten like, I feel like, I don't know, people can be difficult sometimes with just like wanting to stare over your shoulder as a creative all the time and kind of like micromanage stuff and just be like, are you actually working? It's like, yes, but like I'm trying to like, I feel like deadlines are important. Deadlines are very important. You got to get the deadlines. Like that's a given, right? Like I'm not trying to say like, no, like deadlines are very important and you got to respect that. But it's like, it's hard for me when like I'm given like a list of things to do and I'm like I need this done in like an hour or something. And I'm just like,
You should have gave me this last week.
right. Right. Like it's really hard for me to feel inspired when I feel this pressure of like crunch time. Like you need to get this done in like an hour or two. And I'm just like, dang, like I haven't even got to do like the researching part or like really like feel out what I want that to be. So
I think one thing when it comes to that, because I mean, I've been in that situation too before where just random stuff just shows up on your desk or ends up on your plate. You're like, well, that wasn't on my plate an hour ago, and now you want this thing done in an hour. I think the healthy thing to do is have that conversation with people and then set your expectation for your workflow and let them know like how you work. Because I feel like a lot of people, they put their own interpretation on how you should work.
Yeah.
With being a creative, but you could just say, hey, if you want something done by me, I need at least a day or two to kind of go through it or whatever. But obviously you got to navigate that how you navigate it. So
yeah,
that'd be my advice for you.
I'm like a people pleaser. Like I like to say yes to everything. And like a lot of times when people will say like, I need this done in an hour, I'm like, okay, I got you. But then I'm like,
you're like, no problem at all.
Oh my gosh. Like, and I feel like, I don't know, working in a church, like that's what I currently do for my full-time job. It's hard because like, just because it's a interesting thing because it's like you work in a church. I feel like everyone is there to serve each other, but it's like, and to help each other. But like, where's the, like you got to respect other people too. And like, their time and all that stuff. But anyway, we won't go that far into it.
So I got a question for you. So going back to Noon Swim Club, do you have any goals for Noon Swim Club over the next, say, 5, 10, 15 year, or even that 6 months?
Yeah. That's something that I know I need to sit down and actually like dream about. as I mentioned, it's like fairly new for me to like even think of it as my job fully, which I assume a lot of creative people go through. Like I'm kind of hitting the point now where I have a ton of clients and I have like a heavy workload and I'm like, okay, I guess this is kind of what I'm doing full time now. Yeah. It's like, and that's how most creatives go with photography and things like that. You hit a point when you're like, okay, I have so much work and now I guess I'm a business, which can get you into trouble because you want to spend time thinking about where you want to go and you want to spend time thinking about your goals as a business and how you want your day to operate and how you want your communication systems to work. And that is on my plate over the next month. I actually have, not this week, but next, I have it just blocked out for laying down the foundation of what I want, where I want to go, getting a website up. But yeah, I think continuing to work with brands, as I said, and being this like kind of one-stop shop for authentic brands. Yeah. And I think getting pretty specific on the type of like brands that I would work with, not just anything or anyone, can be important for not having a culture of burnout too. Yeah. So, yeah.
I agree.
Do you ever see yourself getting to a point where you have like so much work that you need to expand like your team, or like, have you ever thought about turning Noon Swim Club into like almost a graphic design, like, or creative studio kind of a thing?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I could see it going in a lot of different ways and I'm really open to that. I think my first hire would always be like an admin person because I'm not an admin girly. I'm just not. So I think that in order for my business to grow, I would need somebody that can handle communication and financing for me and things like that. But yeah, I've always had this dream to like actually have a space for my business. And then within that space, could be sort of like a creative playground of selling pottery, making pottery, selling merchandise, possibly selling coffee, and
That's
then
sweet.
All the things you love.
All the things, yeah. And
cool.
I'm also really passionate about interior design, so I get really excited about being able to create my own space and things like that too.
That's cool.
That's dope. I really like
do you see yourself like currently you're in Iowa, right? For the time being. Where would your ideal place be to like settle down and kind of like pursue that, like having like a space of your own? Like would it be in Iowa or would it be in a different state, or like, have you thought about that before?
I have, but now I've gotten old and boring and know that I can't decide that on my own. But I've always been drawn to water, as you could probably tell by my business name.
Yeah.
And honestly, for like my mental health and vitality, I just need water. So near a body of water, a lake, an ocean, that would probably be the most ideal. And I'm also just drawn to like laid back lifestyle in general. And I think that usually happens around bodies of water. So yeah.
Yeah.
Generally speaking.
So kind of just water, right? Like no West Coast, East Coast, Midwest, like.
Yeah.
somewhere with water.
Okay.
I lived in Charleston, South Carolina for a summer and I absolutely loved it there. I mean, who wouldn't? But I love parts of California, but I also like lakes. So
Yeah.
Yeah, water.
Yeah, gotcha.
I like that.
Gotcha.
If you had one piece of advice to tell your younger self or someone that's wanting to pursue a career like you, what is that one piece of advice you'll tell them?
I think I would tell them to create without fear of failure. Sort of the theme of everything I do. And our parents really instilled that in all of us kids. Just sort of this like entrepreneurial, but also you might as well just go try it and see what happens. And if you fail, you learned. If you don't fail, you learned. If you're successful, you learned. And that has absolutely shaped my career and my life choices thus far. Like trying things that I'm sort of being pulled to and see it all the way through. See athletic photography all the way through. See weddings and running my own business all the way through. And then sort of collecting myself at the end of those experiences and being like, okay, did I like that? Did I like pieces of that? And now where do I go?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Got you.
That's
Cool.
good.
Well, this was fun. This was a
This
good
was
episode.
fun.
Thank you for being
Thank you
on.
guys
Thank
so
you so
much.
much.
Yeah,
I
so
really appreciate it.
We end every episode just going around the table and just talking about one thing that has inspired us recently. Like it could have been today, it could have been like this past week or like this past month. So we'll let you think about it. So Marquis, do you got anything?
Yeah, sure, I'll go. One thing that has inspired me this past, I say it's been, I think it came out 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago. So the new the Maverick Way, Maverick City album came out, and I don't know, they got some old tracks on there that just redone, but the live recording video is really good, but it's also different than what they usually have done. So like, it's like
I haven't seen it. So
you
like,
should-
what do you mean
You
by
should
that?
check it out. So like, normally, you know, they're like either in the old church or they got like a worshiping around type of feel. Like
Yeah.
this was more stage.
Okay.
So like, it had like a different feel, but nevertheless, the music was just great.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's
dope.
really inspired me. I've been bumping that and listening to that for like the past 3 weeks every day.
That's awesome.
So
That's
I
cool.
really enjoy that. That's
You know
what
they're
inspired
coming
me.
to Des Moines.
Yeah, they're
right?
coming
Really?
to Des Moines. And
Are you shooting for it?
so no, I talked to my mentor, Tony,
Okay.
and he told us we just need to send him a message about being on a podcast
Oh,
when they come in.
That's
So
cool.
hopefully we can get that figured out. And
okay. So Tony for sure then, right?
so Tony for sure.
And maybe some other people.
He said either he'll be down here, or his team will for sure be down here because they'll be recording it. But
Right.
it's another tour going on at that time. But he was like, if we send him a message, let him know the date, let him know the time, he can figure out how to squeeze us in and figure it out. So
That's sick. Yeah.
yeah.
I'll be there. I got some tickets for it. So
I know I'm excited. I'm going to, so it'll be pretty dope to see him. And I never seen him live.
Yeah.
You've seen him live, right?
no,
Okay.
I haven't.
No, that was Jacob that went to Elevation.
Yeah.
So nice, but
Yeah.
it'll be dope to see him live. So
Yeah. Cool, man. Something that inspired me recently was so one of our past guests, his name is Seth Lunsford, and he has his own like graphic design studio / like shared workspace called Precious. I don't know if you've like heard of it, but it's like it's a really cool like little studio. It's like over by Northern Vessel, like in the same like brick building like
Okay, cool.
area. And so basically like you can like pay for like a desk if you're like a freelancer and you have nowhere to work, like you can just like pay I think monthly for like a desk to work, and you just go there, and like it's really cool because like you meet so many people, so many other creatives, and like you also can get opportunities like passed your way by like
Yeah.
Seth and like some of the other people there, because like they might get people reaching out to them like, we'd love to work with you, and then they might have like, let's say someone reaches out to them and they're like, we need a website built, and there's like a web designer working there. It's like, oh hey, we have a job for you. And so
That's so cool.
yeah, so
Wow.
it's really dope. So
Yeah.
I mean, if you end up in Iowa for a minute or whatever, like you should go check it out, because like it's
I
super
will.
cool.
That sounds perfect.
And there's
for
yeah,
drifters like me.
there's a lot of like really creative people. Like I've met some really like phenomenal like creatives and
Yeah.
human beings there, and like so I went there the other day for the first time because they switched locations. So they used to be in the East Village and like the Market Building, if y'all know where that is, but they moved into the building that Northern Vessel's in. And so like they just got everything like set up, and so that's why I went there, was to go like check it out. And so it was just inspiring because it's like it's a really cool idea.
It is.
And like also just the design of it, and like you're saying how you're into like interior design and stuff. Like there's like really like it's really like aesthetically pleasing in there, I feel like. And Seth is like inspired by like the West, and so like there's a lot of like antique, like vintage Western like feeling things in there, but then also like mixed with like a little bit of like minimalist like styles and stuff like that. So overall it's just like super dope, and so that kind of inspired me just going there the other day. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's like a very innovative thought process to create a space like that for a need, a rising need in all communities for more freelance creative people.
yeah.
That's really cool.
So what about you, Emma?
Well, I think the thing that's been inspiring to me lately is starting to like draw again. I have an iPad and I have
Nice.
Procreate, and I just haven't taken the time to like learn how to draw and create on there yet, because it is very different than actually painting with paint and pencils. But since we're in such a transient time in our life, it's been really creatively unlocking for me to like know that I have that tool wherever I can go. So yeah, I've been spending time outside just like drawing the trees and doing like almost Monet like quick painting. You know, he like studied the light as it changed throughout the day and would just do like quick sketches of how the light was changing the colors of one specific like area. And so to be able to do that with an iPad is like pretty earth shattering for me.
Yeah, that is
cool.
sweet.
So it's been cool to get back into that in that way.
Do you prefer like Procreate now over like an Illustrator or like other type of program?
No, I really only use Procreate for that.
Okay.
But I mean, the integrations with it is seriously so cool that you can draw whatever you want and it's already in media form. You don't have to like figure out how you're going to like transfer your drawing into Illustrator.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Dang, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for being
Thank you
on.
guys.
Yeah. So this was another episode of the Creators POV podcast, and we'll see you next time.